Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Pride, a Living Room series. It is Friday. Please help me welcome our guests for today, Tina and Rebecca. Hi, thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Can you please start us off by telling us a little bit about yourselves?
I'm Rebecca Newman, and I'm a professor of economics at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So I live here in Milwaukee with Tina.
I'm Tina Kreitlow, and I am the Director of Community Education and Recreation for the School District of Cudahy. So for a local community, a local suburban community, I run the rec department. I've been in that position for 7 years. Prior to that, I was with the YMCA for 23 years. I'm born and raised in Milwaukee area. Yeah. I think that's about it. And we met in 2010. We're married in 2011, and we have 2 small children, an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old.
And an interesting fact, we met on Match.com.
Yes.
So it does happen. It does work.
Yep.
So growing up, I wish that I would have known that there was a queer community in general. I wasn't really exposed to a queer culture. I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I was born in Puerto Rico, a very conservative country. I feel I would have had some sort of comfort knowing that I wasn't alone in the process that I was going through, because it was made fun of if you were gay when I was growing up. And it wasn't until I moved to New York that I got exposed to this whole other culture that I was like, oh, it is possible for me to be what I want to be. So I wanted to know if for you guys growing up, if there is something you wish you would have known, if you wish that you could have understood or learned about what queer community is.
Yeah, like I'll actually start because I think that it's not similar in the sense of, growing up in Puerto Rico, although we've been in, it's beautiful, we love it. But in the sense of growing up Catholic, going to Catholic school, living in a suburban community, very similar sort of makeup as you're growing up. But I would say for me, same thing as moving to New York is what really helped me. See, I'll get all emotional about it. I know, right? But I would say it was New York. Darn that New York. They really help us out, right?
I found so many answers because there's so many of everything in New York.
Yeah, right? For me, it was like growing up professionally in the YMCA. I didn't necessarily feel like I had a place working for the YMCA in Milwaukee. And it wasn't that like I chose New York necessarily to go to, but I just knew I needed a change professionally. And I saw this job in New York and I'm like, oh, I've never been, but I guess I could go and, see what it's about. And so if I go for a year or two, great, no problem. So I moved to New York to take a job with the Y there. And then I started to see more people like me. So I did feel like, the whole phrase of representation matters is so true, right? Because I never saw other people like me growing up professionally. And so I feel like I had a responsibility then to my staff to really be out and be who I am so that they had that role model themselves. So so for me, it's about finding that community professionally. And now certainly over the years, gosh, this was so long ago. But now there's all of the employee resource groups that are available in many businesses. So I think that really helps the LGBT plus community employees be more comfortable with who they are at work. But, so for me, that's what moving to New York did for me professionally.
I got goosebumps when you were talking because it was that thing of like, I just didn't see it around me. It just wasn't a thing. It's so important, like you said, to have that representation and to be able to see that it's okay, that there's more people that are going through the same thing and doing the same things. And it's so important to be able to see it. And unfortunately, there are places in the world where it's still not okay to be seen.
Right. Yeah. It was definitely a pivotal point, I think, for me professionally and personally, obviously.
Yeah. What about you, Rebecca?
Well, it's a hard act to follow.
Oh, geez.
I have much less of a story. Growing up as a kid, it wasn't even something for me to think about. Like I always just felt like, oh, I'm a tomboy and I like to do things that maybe some of the other girls don't like to do. But I grew up in the mountains outside of Boulder, Colorado. So that was sort of like, oh, I'm just a mountain kid. And I just like to be outside and hike and do all those things that, it's sort of stereotypical, right? But I never really felt like I was looking for something or missing something until much later. And it wasn't until graduate school when I actually fell in love with a woman. And before that, it hadn't really even crossed my mind that I could be attracted to women. And I still have a very hard time even saying, I don't like labels, and I have a very hard time saying that I'm a lesbian or that I'm bisexual or whatever it is. Like, I don't really think that way. I sort of think about just, I'm who I am, and I've fallen in love with Tina, and that's,
I mean,
I
well,
had a lot of guests as well who are like, well, I don't like to identify myself as anything. I just know that I can fall in love with not just one gender.
I guess I always felt that way, that I could fall in love with an individual, and it didn't matter who that individual was, right? That it could be of any gender, it could be sort of anywhere along that spectrum.
Yeah.
I would say that growing up as a kid, I mean, I felt very accepted by my family in whatever way that I was. And my sister at some point was dating a woman. It was sort of at that point, I thought to myself, oh, wait, this is possible. And now she's married to a man. So, I do think there was some fluidity there that I don't feel like we felt pressure from our parents to fit in some box or to be a particular way.
A lot of the issues I think that we go through, it's because we have to find a label to it. It kind of gives us, an existential crisis.
I remember when I first started trying to date in the Milwaukee area, and people kept asking me like, well, what are you looking for? I'm like, I'm open. And that just got like total confusion. Like, well, we can't suggest anybody for you because we don't know where that fits. Which is why I ended up on Match. Meeting Tina, and it was just like, all right, there it is. Let's do it.
It's a good thing no one knew, because then you went to Match
Exactly.
and her. So with that said, now I want to know, what is your favorite memory as a couple?
oh, geez, that's a hard
I
one.
mean, there are lots of things I could say, and I was going to start with, oh, it's when we adopted our kids. But I think to be more sort of specific about just the two of us, it was actually our wedding.
I was going to say the same thing.
You were not.
I was. How many times do I play our wedding song? And I stop everything that I'm doing at work or at home. When our wedding song comes on, I stop everything.
What is it?
It's Tracy Chapman, The Promise.
I don't know.
So you have to look it up.
Song.
It's so unlike Tracy Chapman music. I heard it when I was traveling. We were engaged, and this song kept coming on when I was abroad. And I called her and I said, you have to listen to this song. It's so unlike Tracy Chapman.
And I was sitting in my car in a park.
Yeah.
And then I put the song on. I'm like, oh, yeah, we can play that. That can be on our wedding. So our wedding this was before we could actually get married legally. But we decided that we were going to do the whole shindig, and we were going to have a big wedding here in Milwaukee and invite all our friends and family. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that they all came, and they all just said, okay, whatever the ceremony is, this is your wedding. Let's just treat it that way. And we started out with all these crazy ideas. I mean, we were going to have a tattoo artist at the ceremony. We're going to do all this stuff, right? And then as we kept going through all the planning, it got more and more traditional.
It did.
And each of us kept sort of heading down this path of, no, I really want somebody to walk me down the aisle. And I really want these people to be involved doing readings. And, everything sort of just kept coming back to this like traditional wedding.
Tattoo artist at the end.
No,
we didn't.
We took that out. We ended up having an outdoor wedding, and it was sort of everything I never knew I was dreaming of.
That's a good way to put it.
Thanks,
I love that.
Now we're going to go into the last segment of our show. My guest before you, Mal Brown, they asked you a question, and you are going to answer the question. Afterwards, you'll get the chance to ask a question that my next guest will answer. Mal asked you,
what is your superpower?
Well, it's funny because like for the week, since we've been talking about arranging this with you, Rebecca is not as much enjoying attention or being on these or being interviewed. And so she kept saying all week, I think I should just have you do it. You should just do the interview and be done with it. And then today, even as we were sort of getting ready, she was sort of like, I'm not feeling it. Maybe you should just do it. And I said to her, I'm like, well, I can't do it alone because we're just better together.
And that is true.
We are. Yeah. So I would say that we're a good team. I mean, in raising the kids and sort of seeing like the bigger picture of life and what's important to us, I think, as a family, we're on the same page about.
And I would say that Tina's superpower is making sure that we always have fun. And I am very serious, right? I sort of want to make sure everything's in order and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing and getting their work done. And we've been doing homeschooling with the kids for the last few months with COVID. And so just making sure everybody's getting, the things that they need done.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tina walks in and, well, all right, we're going for donuts. It's 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. We're supposed to be doing schoolwork. She's like, I don't care. We're going for donuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really is something that I need, and it's something that the family needs. And so I'd say that's her superpower, is just bringing that in, making sure we have fun.
Again. Promise in the background.
I'm telling you, you're gonna love this song when you hear it.
Oh, my heart is like so. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this project. Give it up for Tina and Rebeca.
Yay.
Our pleasure.
And that was all for today. Thank you for watching Pride, a Living Room series. I will see you next week. And remember, stay queer, stay weird. Have a good one.